Part 1, The Lonely Stranger. The cafe smelled like roasted coffee and fresh pastries, just the way Hana liked it. She wiped down the counter for the third time that evening, her eyes drifting toward the corner booth near the large window. The stranger sat there again, alone as always, staring out at the stars beyond the colony dome. Hana had worked at Starlight Brews for almost 2 years now, and she knew all the regular customers by name. But this one was different. The alien woman had started coming in about 3 weeks ago, always ordering the same thing, a single cup of thermal brew, and always sitting in that same corner booth. She never talked to anyone. She never smiled. She just sat there looking sad and far away. The other servers avoided her. Minho said she gave him uncomfortable feelings. Junji claimed the alien's silver skin was creepy, but Hana didn't think she was creepy at all. She thought the woman looked lonely. Tonight, the cafe was quiet. Only 2 other customers sat at separate tables, both humans reading on their tablets. Hana made her decision. She picked up the pot of thermal brew and walked over to the corner booth. "Would you like a refill?" Hana asked with a warm smile. The alien woman looked up, surprise flickering across her elegant features. Her skin shimmered with faint blue patterns that glowed softly in the dim light. Her eyes were large and dark like pools of deep water. Yes. "Thank you," the woman said quietly. Her voice was smooth and musical, with an accent Hana couldn't quite place. Hana poured the steaming liquid into her cup. "I'm Hana, by the way. I've seen you here a lot, but we've never actually talked," the woman hesitated. "You may call me Vex." "Nice to meet you properly, Vex." Hana smiled again. "You come here almost every night. Do you live nearby?" "No, I am traveling for business." Vex looked back out the window. "I find this place peaceful." Hana followed her gaze. Through the transparent dome, she could see the 3 moons of Harmony 7 hanging in the purple sky, stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds on velvet. "It is beautiful, isn't it? I came here from Earth 5 years ago. Sometimes I miss home, but then I look up and see views like this and I remember why I stayed." Vex turned back to her, curiosity in her dark eyes. "You miss your home planet?" "Sometimes," Hana admitted. "Mostly I miss the people. My old friends, my teachers at the university. But I'm studying xenolinguistics now at the Colony College. I want to help different species understand each other better. Maybe even work for the Galactic Council someday." "A noble goal," Vex said softly. Something in her voice sounded sad again. "What about you?" Hana asked, leaning against the booth. "What kind of business brings you all the way out here to Harmony 7? "Administrative work. Very boring, I assure you." Vex wrapped her long, delicate fingers around the warm cup. "I make decisions that affect many people. It is exhausting." "That sounds really stressful," Hana said sympathetically. "No wonder you look so tired sometimes." "Do you have friends who help you? People you can talk to?" Vex was quiet for a long moment. "No, not really. My position makes genuine friendship difficult." Hana felt a pang in her chest. She knew what loneliness felt like. After her parents died when she was 12, she'd spent years feeling alone, even in crowded rooms. "Well," she said gently, "if you ever want someone to talk to, I'm usually here during the evening shift. And I'm a pretty good listener." For the first time, Vex smiled. It was small and uncertain, like she'd forgotten how. "Thank you. That is kind of you. No problem." Hana glanced back at the counter. "I should probably get back to work before my manager notices I'm chatting. But seriously, feel free to talk anytime. Sometimes it helps just to have someone listen, you know?" "Yes," Vex said quietly. "I know." Hana walked back to the counter, feeling pleased with herself. She'd made the mysterious alien woman smile. That was something. The next evening, Vex came in at the same time. But this time, when Hana brought her the thermal brew, Vex actually started a conversation. "You said you study xenolinguistics," Vex began. "Why did you choose that field?" Hana sat down across from her. The cafe was empty except for them. "I think communication is the most important thing in the universe. So many conflicts happen just because people don't understand each other. If we could all talk and really listen, really understand where others are coming from, maybe we'd fight less." "An optimistic view," Vex observed. "Do you truly believe it's that simple?" "Simple? No," Hana laughed. "I said it was important, not simple. Understanding takes work. It takes patience. It takes actually caring about the other person's perspective, even when it's different from yours. But I think it's worth the effort." Vex studied her with those deep, dark eyes. You are very young. Has life not yet taught you that some differences cannot be bridged? I'm 19, not a baby, Hana said with mock offense, then grew serious. And yeah, I've had hard times. I lost my parents. I grew up in foster care. I know the world isn't perfect, but that's exactly why we have to try, right? If we give up on understanding each other, what's left? War, Vex said quietly. Isolation, loneliness, exactly. And those things are terrible. Hana leaned forward. But friendship? Connection? Those are powerful too, maybe even more powerful than the bad stuff. Vex was silent for a long time, staring into her cup. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I hope you are right. Over the next 2 weeks, their evening conversations became routine. Vex would arrive at 7 o'clock, order her thermal brew, and sit in her usual booth. When Hana had breaks, she would sit with her and they would talk. Hana learned that Vex came from a species called the Luxarians, who valued order and duty above all else. She learned that Vex had been doing her administrative work for many, many years. She never said exactly how long. She learned that Vex found human colonies refreshingly uncomplicated compared to Luxarian society. In return, Vex listened to Hana's stories about her classes, her dreams of becoming a translator, and her small group of friends. She told Vex about Daeho, the engineering student who was terrified of talking to girls, and Jiwoo, the artist who painted scenes from different planets she'd never visited. They sound like good friends, Vex said one evening. They are, Hana agreed. Friends make everything better. Even terrible days feel okay when you have someone to share them with. Vex looked at her with an expression Hana couldn't quite read. You give your friendship very freely, Hana. Is that not dangerous? What if someone takes advantage of your kindness? Maybe they will, Hana shrugged. But I'd rather be someone who trusts people than someone who's always suspicious. Life's too short to build walls around your heart, you know? Even if those walls protect you from pain. Even then. Because walls keep out the bad stuff, but they also keep out the good stuff. And the good stuff is what makes life worth living. Vex reached across the table and touched Hana's hand briefly, a gesture of affection that seemed to surprise even her. You are quite remarkable, Hana. I hope you know that. Hana felt her cheeks warm. I'm really not. I'm just me, a girl who works in a cafe and goes to college and tries to be nice to people. Perhaps, Vex said softly, that is exactly what makes you remarkable. That night, after the cafe closed, Hana walked home under the 3 moons feeling lighter than she had in months. She'd made a new friend, a real friend, who seemed to actually care about what she thought and felt. She didn't notice the sleek black vehicles parked in the shadows nearby. She didn't see the figures inside watching the cafe with concern. She didn't know that her new friend was being monitored by security forces from the most powerful empire in the galaxy. She simply walked home, humming softly, thinking about how nice it was to connect with someone from a completely different world. How wonderful it was that despite all their differences, she and Vex could sit together and talk like old friends. If she had known the truth about who Vex really was, she might have been terrified. But Hana didn't know. And for now, in this small cafe on a frontier colony, that ignorance was a gift. It allowed 2 lonely souls to find each other, free from the weight of crowns and empires. Part 2, Breaking Down. Walsvex started coming to the cafe more often. Instead of just evenings, she now appeared during Hana's afternoon shifts too. They fell into an easy rhythm. Hana would bring her drink, sit down during quiet moments, and they would talk about everything and nothing. One afternoon, Hana brought 2 cups of hot chocolate to the booth instead of Vex's usual thermal brew. You need to try this, she insisted. It's a human thing. We drink it when we want to feel comforted. Vex took a cautious sip and her eyes widened. This is sweet, very sweet. Too sweet? Hana asked worriedly. No, it's... Vex took another sip and something in her expression softened. It's lovely. Warm and sweet and comforting, just as you said. She looked at Hana with genuine wonder. How do humans know to create something like this? Hana laughed. I don't know. Someone figured out you could make chocolate from cocoa beans, add milk and sugar, and boom. Liquid happiness. We're pretty good at finding ways to make ourselves feel better. Your species is remarkable in that way, Vex said thoughtfully. You seek joy actively. You create it, share it. In my culture, we are taught that duty comes before personal happiness. That sacrifice is noble. Sacrifice can be noble, Hana agreed. But not if it makes you miserable all the time. What's the point of living if you're never happy? Vex stared into her hot chocolate. What indeed? During another visit, Hana brought her tablet to show Vex pictures from the Harvest Festival she'd attended last weekend. See? That's Daeho trying to win at the strength test game. He failed miserably. And that's Jiwoo with her face painted like a tiger. She said it represented her inner fierce spirit or something. Vex studied the images with fascination. You all look so happy. So free. We were. It's nice to just have fun sometimes, you know? No pressure, no stress, just enjoying the moment. Hana scrolled to another photo. Oh, and this is the food stand where I ate way too many honey cakes. My stomach hurt for hours, but it was totally worth it. A small smile played at Vex's lips. I cannot remember the last time I did something simply because it was fun. Seriously? Hana looked shocked. But fun is important. It's how we recharge, how we remember why we work so hard in the first place. My work never stops, Vex said quietly. Every decision I make affects thousands of people. If I make a mistake, people suffer. There is no time for frivolous pursuits. Hana reached across the table and touched Vex's hand. That sounds really lonely. Everyone needs a break, Vex, even people with important jobs. Especially people with important jobs. Vex looked at their joined hands and something vulnerable crossed her face. Perhaps you are right. The following week, Hana convinced Vex to stay later than usual. There's something I want to show you, she said mysteriously. At midnight, she led Vex up to the cafe's roof access. The colony dome's lights had dimmed for the night cycle, and the stars blazed above them in impossible numbers. It's beautiful up here at night, Hana said, sitting down on the roof edge and patting the space beside her. Sometimes when I'm stressed about exams or life stuff, I come up here and just look at the stars. It reminds me that my problems are pretty small in the grand scheme of things. Vex sat down carefully beside her, her posture stiff and formal. Do you often feel stressed? Sure, everyone does. Hana swung her legs over the edge. Last week I failed a test on Craxian grammar. I studied for days, but I just couldn't get the tense structures right. I was so upset I cried. What did you do? I talked to my professor. She helped me understand where I went wrong. Then I studied harder and retook the test. I passed the second time. Hana smiled. The point is, it's okay to fail sometimes. It's okay to need help. That's just part of being alive. Vex was quiet for a long moment. In my culture, failure is unacceptable. Leaders who show weakness are replaced. We must always appear strong, always in control, always certain. That sounds exhausting, Hana said softly. It is. Vex's voice was barely a whisper. Some days I feel like I'm drowning under the weight of expectations. Everyone looks to me for answers, for strength, for direction. But I'm just a person, Hana finished gently, with feelings and doubts and fears like everyone else. Vex turned to look at her, and in the starlight, Hana could see tears gleaming in those dark eyes. Yes, just a person. But I cannot admit that to anyone. The moment I show vulnerability, I lose authority. I lose respect. You don't lose mine, Hana said firmly. I think it's brave to admit when you're struggling. It takes more courage to be honest about your feelings than to pretend everything's fine. Your species has such a different perspective, Vex said. You value emotional honesty. Vulnerability is seen as authentic, not weak. It is refreshing. Terrifying, but refreshing. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel slowly overhead. After a while, Hana started pointing out constellations, making up silly stories about each one. Vex listened, and occasionally she laughed, a sound like wind chimes that made Hana's heart glad. The next week, news broadcasts in the cafe started talking about tensions between the Luxarian Imperium and the Human Colonial Federation, something about disputed mining rights in the Kepler sector. The Luxarian Empress is probably going to crush us, one customer complained loudly. I heard she's ruthless. Doesn't care about anyone but her own people. Another customer shook his head. Maybe she's just protecting her territory. Humans are always expanding, always taking more space. Can you blame her for pushing back? She's an alien tyrant, the first customer insisted. All that matters to her is power. Hana noticed Vex sitting very still in her booth, her face carefully blank. But Hana had learned to read her friend's subtle expressions. She could see the pain hidden behind that neutral mask. When her break came, Hana sat down across from Vex. Don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about. How do you know? Vex asked quietly. You don't know the Empress either. No, but I know that leaders are just people trying to do their best with impossible choices. It's easy to judge from the outside, but I bet the truth is way more complicated than tyrant or hero. Hana stirred her coffee thoughtfully. I think most people in power are probably lonely and stressed and scared of making mistakes just like everyone else. They're just not allowed to show it. Vex stared at her. You have remarkable insight, Hana. Not really. I just try to remember that everyone's fighting battles we can't see. She smiled. That's why I think it's important to be kind. You never know what someone else is dealing with. Even enemies? Especially enemies. Maybe if we were kinder to each other, we'd have fewer enemies in the first place. That weekend, Hana finally convinced Vex to meet her friends. They gathered at a small restaurant near the colony's central plaza. Daeho was nervous, stammering over his words. Jiwoo was curious, asking Vex dozens of questions about Luxarian art and culture. So you're the mysterious friend Hana keeps talking about, Jiwoo said with a grin. She says you're really wise and give great advice. I do. Vex looked at Hana in surprise. Hana blushed. You do. You always know the right thing to say when I'm worried about something. That is because you are easy to advise, Vex said softly. You have a good heart. You simply need reminding of that sometimes. The evening was pleasant. They shared food, told stories, and laughed at Daeho's terrible jokes. Vex seemed to relax, her formal posture easing as the night went on. For a few hours, she was just another person enjoying dinner with friends. As they walked back toward the cafe later, Hana linked her arm through Vex's. See? That wasn't so bad, was it? No, Vex admitted. It was wonderful. I cannot remember the last time I felt so normal. So accepted. That's what friends are for, Hana said happily. Making you feel like you belong. Vex stopped walking and turned to face her. Hana, I must tell you something. I have not been entirely honest with you about who I... Her words were cut off by a distant alarm. Red lights began flashing at the colony perimeter. People in the plaza started moving quickly, some running toward shelters. What's happening? Hana asked, fear creeping into her voice. A colonial guard officer rushed past them, shouting into his comm device. Luxarian ships approaching. All civilians to safe zones immediately. Vex's face went pale, her bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically. I have to go now. What? Vex, what's going on? But Vex was already moving toward the spaceport, her movement swift and urgent. I'm sorry, Hana. I will explain everything when I can. Just stay safe, please, Vex. Hana called after her, but her friend had disappeared into the crowd. Hana stood alone in the plaza, alarms blaring around her, watching the stars where Luxarian warships were appearing like dark threats against the velvet sky. Her heart pounded with confusion and fear. She touched the spot on her arm where Vex had linked with hers just moments before, and she wondered why her friend had looked so afraid. So guilty. She didn't understand. Not yet, but soon everything would become terrifyingly clear. The Luxarian ships didn't attack. They just hung there in space, dark and silent, like a threat waiting to become real. Colonial Governor Taeyang issued emergency protocols. No ships in or out of the colony. All alien residents confined to their quarters. Weapons on standby. Hana tried calling Vex 100 times. No answer. She sent messages. Nothing came back. It was like her friend had vanished completely. At the cafe, the mood was ugly. Customers muttered about aliens and invasions. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. Everyone was scared and angry, and that combination made people say cruel things. I heard they eat humans, someone whispered. Don't be stupid, another person snapped. But they do think we're inferior. Barely sentient. That's why they treat us like garbage. Hana cleaned tables and said nothing, but inside her heart was breaking. Where was Vex? Was she safe? Did she make it off the colony before the lockdown? And why had she run when the ships appeared? 3 days passed. The standoff continued. Luxarian ships. Human ships. Everyone waiting for someone else to blink first. On the 4th day, a Luxarian ambassador arrived at the colony with demands. Harmony 7 must cease all expansion activities. Human miners must leave the disputed territories. The colony would submit to Imperium oversight. Governor Taeyang refused publicly on the news broadcast. Harmony 7 is a free human colony. We will not bow to alien tyranny. The situation got worse. Small skirmishes broke out in nearby sectors. A Luxarian cargo ship was fired upon by what might have been human pirates. 3 human miners disappeared near the border zone. Nobody knew if they'd been captured or killed. Anti-alien protests started in the Colony Plaza. Someone threw rocks at a visiting Xanthari family's shop. The cafe got vandalized. Someone spray-painted "No Aliens" across the front window. Hana scrubbed at the paint with tears in her eyes. How had everything gone wrong so fast? Just a week ago, she'd been sitting on the roof with Vex laughing at silly constellation stories. Now the galaxy was falling apart. That night, as she locked up the cafe, a hooded figure approached her. Hana's heart jumped with fear until she recognized those dark, distinctive eyes. "Vex!" Hana threw her arms around her friend. "Oh my stars, I was so worried. Where have you been? Are you okay?" Vex held her briefly, then gently pulled away. "I cannot stay long. It's dangerous for me to be here. Dangerous for you if anyone sees us together." "What are you talking about? You're my friend. I don't care if people don't like it." "Hana, please listen." Vex's voice was urgent. "Things are happening beyond your understanding. The situation between my people and yours is deteriorating. War may be inevitable. Then help me stop it." Hana grabbed Vex's hands. "You're connected to the Luxarian government somehow, right? That's why you had to leave so suddenly? Use your influence. Tell them we don't want war. Tell them humans and Luxarians can be friends. We're proof of that." Vex's expression was anguished. "It's not that simple." "Why not? Make it simple. Just talk to whoever's in charge. Tell them, I am in charge." The words burst out of Vex like a confession she could no longer contain. She pulled her hands away and stepped back, her bioluminescent patterns flaring bright with distress. "I am Empress Velthrax Illumina of the Luxarian Imperium. I command 847 star systems. I control fleets that could turn this entire colony into dust. I am the one making these demands. I am the one your people call a tyrant." Hana stared at her. The words made no sense. They were sounds without meaning. "What?" "I am the Empress," Vex repeated, her voice breaking. "Everything I told you was true. The loneliness, the burden of decisions, the weight of responsibility. But I never told you the full truth of who I was. I came here seeking a moment of peace, a place where I could be anonymous. And then I met you. And for the first time in over a century, I felt like a person instead of a position. I couldn't bear to lose that, so I lied. By omission, but still I lied." Hana felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. The Empress. Her friend was the Empress. The same person whose policies threatened her home. The same person responsible for the warships overhead. The same person customers in the cafe had called ruthless and cruel. "You used me," Hana said, her voice hollow. "Was I some kind of experiment? Study the primitive humans? See how they live?" "No." Vex reached for her, but Hana stepped back. "No, Hana, everything between us was real. Every conversation, every moment, that was genuine. You were the first person in over 100 years who saw me as just a person, who offered friendship without ulterior motives, who made me feel like I mattered beyond my title. But you lied to me. You let me talk about you, about the Empress, and you just sat there. You let me defend you to people who were scared of you. And the whole time you knew." Hana's voice cracked. "Did you laugh at me? Did you think I was stupid?" "Never." Tears streamed down Vex's face, her patterns pulsing with distress. "I admired you. Your kindness, your optimism, your belief in bridge building and understanding. You were everything I'd forgotten how to be. You reminded me why my position exists, not to control people, but to protect them, to create peace." "Then why are you threatening war?" Hana demanded. "Because I'm trapped," Vex cried. "My advisors demand aggression. My military wants to demonstrate strength. If I show weakness, if I appear soft on human expansion, there are factions within my own empire who will remove me from power. And whoever replaces me will be far worse for your people, I promise you that. So you're sacrificing us to keep your throne." "I'm trying to prevent a slaughter." Vex's voice was desperate. "If hardliners take control, they will not stop at blockades and demands. They will eradicate every human colony in disputed space. I am the only thing standing between your people and genocide. But to maintain that position, I must appear strong. I must make demands. I must play the tyrant even though it tears me apart." Hana wrapped her arms around herself, trying to process everything. Her friend was the Empress. The enemy was her friend. Nothing made sense anymore. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked quietly. "Because I cannot bear your ignorance any longer. Because you deserve the truth. And because..." Vex pulled something from beneath her cloak, a small crystal pendant on a silver chain, glowing with soft blue light. Because I want you to have this. What is it? A safety token. If you are ever in danger, hold this and call for help. Someone will come. Someone will protect you. Vex pressed it into Hana's reluctant hands. I cannot prevent the coming storm, but I can ensure you survive it. I don't want special protection, Hana said, but she closed her fingers around the crystal anyway. I want you to stop this madness. I want you to be the person I thought you were. I am that person, Vex insisted, but I'm also an empress with impossible choices. Can you understand that? Hana looked at her friend, this alien ruler who commanded fleets and feared assassination, and apparently drank hot chocolate in a colony cafe to feel normal for a few hours. She wanted to hate her. She wanted to rage and scream and feel betrayed, but instead she just felt sad. You asked me once if I could forgive someone who lied about who they were, Hana said softly, remembering that conversation. I said the truth of who they are inside matters more than the facts they hid. Yes, Vex whispered. I meant it. But Vex, your actions have to match your heart. If you're really the person I got to know, the one who values connection and peace and understanding, then you need to find another way. You need to be brave enough to choose friendship over fear. What if that choice costs me everything? Then you lose everything with your integrity intact. Hana stepped forward and took Vex's hands again. That's what my parents taught me before they died. Do the right thing even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because at the end of your life, your power won't matter. Your title won't matter. What will matter is whether you treated people with kindness and whether you had the courage to stand up for what you believed in. Vex stared at her and something in her expression shifted. The fear and desperation faded, replaced by something like determination, like hope. You are extraordinary, Hana. Truly extraordinary. She squeezed Hana's hands. I must go. My security forces are looking for me. I slipped away without permission to see you. But I want you to know, meeting you changed me. Whatever happens next, whatever I do, it will be because a human girl in a cafe reminded me what really matters. She pulled away and headed toward the shadows. Vex, Hana called after her. The Empress turned back. Come back safe, okay? Because even though I'm angry and hurt and confused, you're still my friend. And I don't abandon my friends. Vex's smile was brilliant and heartbroken. Neither do I. Then she was gone, vanished into the darkness between buildings. Hana looked down at the crystal pendant in her palm. It pulsed with gentle light warm against her skin. She slipped it around her neck and tucked it under her shirt, where it rested against her heart. Above her, through the colony dome, Luxarian warships waited in the darkness. And somewhere among them, her friend carried the weight of empires and impossible choices. Hana didn't know if their friendship could survive what was coming. She didn't know if anything could survive what was coming. But she knew one thing for certain. She meant what she'd said. She didn't abandon her friends. Even when those friends turned out to be galactic empresses. Even when the galaxy itself seemed determined to tear them apart. Everything fell apart quickly after that night. The Luxarian Imperium deployed more ships to the blockade. Human Colonial Federation sent their own fleet in response. Two massive forces faced each other across the darkness of space, weapons armed, fingers on triggers. On Harmony 7, life became a nightmare. Colonial Guard soldiers patrolled the streets. Emergency sirens tested every morning, making everyone jump. The spaceport closed completely. Nobody could leave. Nobody could arrive. They were trapped in a jar, waiting to see if someone would shake it. The cafe's business dropped to almost nothing. People were too scared to go out for coffee. They stayed home, glued to news broadcasts, watching as diplomats shouted at each other and military officers made threats. Hana kept going to work anyway. She couldn't sit still, couldn't just wait helplessly. So she cleaned tables nobody sat at and made drinks nobody ordered and tried not to think about Vex up there in one of those warships, wearing a crown instead of a smile. Daeho and Jiwoo came by to keep her company. They sat in the empty cafe speaking in low voices about evacuation plans and emergency supplies. My professor said we should all pack essential bags, Daeho said nervously, in case we need to evacuate quickly. Evacuate where? Jiwoo asked bitterly. The spaceport's closed. We're stuck here. If they start shooting, we're dead. Don't say that, Hana said sharply. Nobody's dying. They're going to figure this out. They have to. but she didn't really believe it. She'd seen the hate in people's eyes. The fear had turned into anger, and anger wanted targets. Aliens who'd lived peacefully on Harmony 7 for years were suddenly suspect. Friends became enemies overnight because they had different skin or different customs or spoke different languages. Everything Hannah had studied, everything she'd believed about bridge building and understanding, it all seemed useless now. Words didn't matter when warships filled the sky. One evening, Hannah was walking home from the cafe when she saw a crowd gathered in the plaza. Someone was giving a speech. A human man stood on a makeshift platform, shouting about alien oppression and human pride. "They think they can control us," he yelled. "They think we'll bow down just because they have bigger ships. But we're humans. We don't surrender. We fight." The crowd cheered. Hannah felt sick. She tried to slip past unnoticed, but someone grabbed her arm. It was Minho, her co-worker from the cafe. "Hannah, there you are. Come on, everyone's gathering. We're organizing a resistance movement." "A what?" "Resistance. If the Colonial Guard won't protect us properly, we'll protect ourselves." His eyes were bright with zealous energy. "We're humans. We're survivors. We'll show these aliens they can't push us around." Hannah pulled her arm free. "Minho, that's insane. He'll just make things worse." "Worse? They've got us under blockade. They're threatening our home." "How much worse can it get?" "A lot worse if we start a shooting war." "You sound like an alien sympathizer," Minho said coldly. "Oh wait, you are. I remember you always being nice to that silver-skinned woman. The one who disappeared right when the ships showed up. Seems suspicious, doesn't it?" Fear pricked at Hannah's spine. She was just a customer. Was she? Or was she a spy? Maybe she was feeding information to the Imperium, and maybe you were helping her. That's ridiculous. But other people had heard. They turned to look at Hannah with suspicious eyes. Someone muttered something about traitors. Someone else spat on the ground near her feet. Hannah ran. She ran all the way home, her heart pounding, tears streaming down her face. She locked herself in her tiny apartment and collapsed on her bed, shaking. This was how it happened. This was how people who were friends yesterday became enemies today. Fear and anger and suspicion. They spread like poison, contaminating everything. She touched the crystal pendant under her shirt. It felt warm, almost alive. Should she use it? Call for help? But help from whom? Vex was the Empress. Vex commanded the fleet that was threatening her home. What could she possibly do? The next day, news broke that 3 human miners had been found dead in the border zone. Colonial Federation investigators claimed they'd been executed by Luxarian forces. Luxarian officials denied involvement, suggesting human extremists had killed their own people to create an incident. Nobody knew who to believe. Everyone believed what fit their existing fears. Governor Taiyang appeared on the broadcast, his face grim. "The Luxarian Imperium has made its position clear. They demand our submission or they threaten our destruction. I say we choose a third option. We choose defiance. Humanity does not kneel." The crowd in the Colony Plaza roared approval. Hannah watched the broadcast from the cafe's screen and felt despair wash over her. This was it. This was how war started. Not with careful planning or noble causes, but with frightened people making frightened choices. That afternoon, colonial security forces came to the cafe. 2 officers in combat armor walked in, their weapons obvious on their belts. "Hannah Kim?" one of them asked. "Yes? You need to come with us. We have questions about your relationship with a foreign operative." "Foreign operative? I don't know any." "The Luxarian female. The one you met with regularly. We have surveillance footage showing multiple extended conversations." "What information did you provide her?" "Nothing. She was just a customer. We talked about normal things, coffee, school, life stuff. She wasn't just a customer." The officer's voice was hard. "We've identified her. She's a high-ranking Luxarian official, possibly military intelligence. And you spent hours with her, so I'll ask again. What information did you provide?" They took her to Colonial Security Headquarters, put her in a small room with a table and uncomfortable chairs, asked her the same questions over and over. What did she tell the Luxarian? What did the Luxarian ask about? Why did the Luxarian choose her specifically? Was she being paid? Blackmailed? Was she a willing traitor or a naive fool? Neither, Hannah insisted for the 100th time. We were friends. We talked about normal things. I didn't know who she really was until a few days ago. And yet she gave you this. The interrogator held up the crystal pendant. They'd taken it when they searched her. Do you know what this is? A gift. A friendship token. It's a Luxarian imperial sigil. Only high-ranking officials carry these. This particular one grants emergency authority and protection across Imperium space. Why would a random alien give something so valuable to a cafe worker? Because we were friends, Hannah whispered. Because she was lonely and I was kind to her. That's all. I swear that's all. They didn't believe her. Or maybe they did but didn't care. In times of war, friendship with the enemy was betrayal. Kindness was suspicion. Being different was dangerous. They locked her in a detention cell. Said she'd stay there until they figured out what to do with her. Collaboration with foreign agents was a serious crime. If war broke out, she could be executed as a traitor. Hannah sat on the hard bench in her cell and finally let herself break. She'd tried so hard to be good, to be kind, to build bridges. And for what? To be accused of treason? To be hated by her own people? Maybe everyone was right. Maybe friendship across species was impossible. Maybe the galaxy was just too broken to fix. She touched the place where the pendant had rested against her heart. They'd taken it, locked it away as evidence, but she remembered how it felt, warm, safe, like a promise. Vex had said, if you are ever in danger, hold this and call for help. She was in danger now. Real danger. But the pendant was gone, and even if she had it, how could she call for help from an empress who was probably preparing to attack her home? She curled up on the bench, cold and alone, and tried not to think about how everything had gone so terribly wrong. Hours passed. Maybe days. It was hard to tell in the windowless cell. Guards brought her food occasionally. Nobody answered her questions. Nobody told her what was happening. Then suddenly alarms. Red lights flashing. The sound of running feet and shouted orders. An explosion somewhere in the distance, not close, but close enough to feel. The war had started. Hannah pressed herself against the wall of her cell, terror flooding through her. This was it. Everything was falling apart. People were dying. Her home was under attack. And she was trapped, helpless, alone. She thought about her parents, dead so many years. About Daeho and Jiwoo, who were hopefully somewhere safe. About Vex, who'd tried to prevent this and failed. She thought about all the bridges she'd dreamed of building now burning to ash. And she thought, this is how the galaxy ends. Not with understanding, but with fear. Not with friendship, but with war. Not with hope, but with the terrible final silence that comes after the shooting stops. The explosion turned out to be a mining accident, not an attack. But it was enough. Both fleets were on highest alert now. One wrong move, one nervous finger on a trigger, and billions would die. In her detention cell, Hannah heard guards talking in urgent voices. Something about the Empress. Something about a shuttle. Something impossible. Then the door to her cell opened. A colonial security officer stood there, his face pale and confused. You need to come with me now. Why? What's happening? The Luxarian Empress is here. On Harmony 7. She came down in a shuttle alone and she's demanding your release. The governor doesn't know what to do. This is completely insane. They rushed Hannah through corridors filled with armed guards and confused officials. Everyone was shouting. Nobody knew the protocol for an enemy empress showing up. Personally, during a military standoff, they brought her to a conference room where Governor Taeyang stood facing Vex. The empress was in her full formal regalia now, flowing robes that shimmered with light, a crown of crystal points that floated around her head, her skin blazing with bioluminescent patterns. She looked alien, powerful, terrifying. But when she saw Hannah, her expression softened with relief. You activated the pendant, Vex said. No, I didn't. They took it from me. The pendant activates automatically if you're in severe distress. It's keyed to your biosignature. Vex turned to face Governor Taeyang. This human is under Imperial protection. Release her immediately. You have no authority here, Taeyang said, though his voice shook slightly. This is a human colony. We don't answer to the Luxarian Imperium. Then perhaps we should discuss why you imprisoned an innocent civilian whose only crime was showing kindness to a stranger. Vex's voice was cold and commanding, nothing like the soft-spoken friend from the café. Or perhaps we should discuss why you're preparing for a war that will destroy you. You're the one who brought warships to our doorstep, to prevent a massacre by my own hardliners. If I had not taken control of this situation personally, my military would have already glassed this colony. Vex's patterns flared bright with anger. I am trying to save you, you fool, and you respond by imprisoning one of your own citizens for the crime of friendship. She was consorting with the enemy. She was being a decent person. Something this conflict desperately needs more of. They stared at each other, neither backing down. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Finally, Hana found her voice. "Stop, both of you, just stop." Everyone turned to look at her. She stepped forward, placing herself between the Empress and the governor. This is exactly the problem. Everyone's so busy being angry and scared that nobody's actually listening. Nobody's trying to understand. You're just shouting at each other, preparing to kill each other, and for what? Mining rights? Territory? Pride? It's more complicated than that, Taeyang began. Is it? Hana challenged. Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty simple. You're both afraid. The Imperium is afraid of human expansion. Humans are afraid of Luxarian control, so you're threatening each other, which makes everyone more afraid, which leads to more threats. It's a cycle, and somebody has to be brave enough to break it. We tried diplomacy, Taeyang said. They responded with blockades. Because our military forced my hand, Vex snapped. If I had shown weakness, I would have been removed and replaced by someone who would have killed you all without negotiation. So you're both trapped, Hana said. Trapped by fear and politics and the expectations of your people. But here's the thing about humans. We're really good at finding third options. We're good at breaking rules when rules don't work. We're good at saying, no, there has to be a better way, and then finding it. She looked at Vex. You told me once that you admired human optimism. Our belief that connection matters more than power. Did you mean that? Yes, Vex said quietly. Hana turned to Taeyang. And you, Governor, you represent a colony built on the idea of different species living together peacefully. Was that just words, or did you actually believe it? Taeyang shifted uncomfortably. I believed it. Before all this, then believe it now, when it's hard. When it's scary, that's when belief actually matters. Hana took a deep breath. I have an idea. It's probably crazy, but it's the most human solution I can think of. What is it? Vex asked. A broadcast. Not a negotiation between governments. Just a conversation between two friends. You and me, Vex. Talking honestly about everything. The fear, the misunderstandings, the loneliness of leadership, the cost of war. Let both our people see that underneath all the politics and posturing, we're just people trying to figure out how to live together. That's insane, Taeyang said. Broadcasting during a military crisis? It could cause panic. It could be seen as propaganda. Or, Hana countered, it could be seen as hope, as proof that friendship across species isn't just possible. It's powerful enough to stop wars. Vex was quiet for a long moment. My advisors would call this weakness. An empress speaking casually with a human civilian during a standoff. It violates every protocol. Good, Hana said firmly. Sometimes protocols need to be violated. Sometimes the rules are the problem. Vex looked at her with those deep dark eyes. Hana saw the fear there, the doubt, the weight of impossible choices. But she also saw something else. Something that had been there since that first night in the cafe when a lonely empress found a friend in a kind-hearted human. Hope. Very well, Vex said. Let's try the human way. They set up cameras in the conference room. Broadcast signals went out to both fleets, to both governments, to public channels across multiple star systems. Within minutes, billions of beings were watching. Hana and Vex sat across from each other at a simple table. No grand stages, no formal settings, just two people talking. Hi, Hana began speaking to the cameras. My name is Hana, I'm 19 years old. I work at a cafe and study xenolinguistics. A few weeks ago, I met someone who changed my life. I didn't know she was the Luxarian Empress. I just knew she was lonely and sad and I wanted to help. Vex picked up the thread. I am Empress Velthrax Illumina. I command vast fleets and govern billions. But when I met Hana, I was just a person who'd forgotten what genuine friendship felt like. She reminded me. For the next hour, they talked. Really talked. Hana asked hard questions. Why did the Imperium see humans as threats? What were Vex's actual goals? What did she fear? Vex answered honestly. She explained the Luxarian worldview, their value of order, their fear of chaos, their centuries-old belief that their way was the only way. She admitted that meeting Hana had shaken those beliefs, had shown her that human chaos was actually strength, adaptability, the courage to embrace change and difference. You asked me once why Luxarians value duty over happiness, Vex said. The truth is, we've forgotten how to be happy. We've built an empire of rules and hierarchies in perfect order. But we've lost something essential. We've lost warmth, connection, joy. And you came to our colony looking for that? Hana asked gently. I came looking for peace. I found something far more valuable. I found a friend who saw me as a person, not a position, who offered kindness without expectation, who believed that understanding was possible even between very different beings. Vex's voice cracked slightly. I risked my throne, my empire, perhaps my life, to come here today. Because Hana taught me that some things matter more than power. Some things are worth dying for. Friendship is one of them. Hana felt tears on her cheeks. People are going to call you weak for saying that. Let them. I've been called powerful all my life. Perhaps it's time I was brave instead. Then Hana turned to face the camera directly. This is what humans do. We make friends with strangers. We offer kindness to people who are different from us. We believe that connection is stronger than fear, that love matters more than power, that individuals are worth more than empires. She stood up, her voice growing stronger. Vex is right that we're chaotic. We argue constantly. We make terrible mistakes. Our governments are messy and our societies are complicated, and we definitely don't have everything figured out. But you know what? We also reach across species boundaries within days of meeting someone. We invite aliens to dinner. We share our food and our stories, and our lives with anyone who's willing to connect. She looked at Vex. The Luxarian Empire has existed for thousands of years because everyone follows the rules and knows their place. But humanity? We've survived because we care about each other, because we decide that people matter, even when it doesn't make strategic sense, especially when it doesn't make strategic sense. Hana's voice rang with passion now. You were lonely, Vex, not because you lacked power, but because you lacked this. This connection, this warmth, and the fact that you risked everything to come here for one person, that's not Luxarian thinking. That's the most human thing you could have done. That's what we do. We choose people over politics. We choose friendship over fear. We choose love over war. She spread her arms wide. Maybe we're not so different after all. Maybe underneath all the cultural differences and biological variations, we all just want the same things. To be safe, to be valued, to matter to someone. Maybe that's the bridge we've been looking for. Silence filled the room after she finished, but through the cameras, through the broadcast signals, her words rippled out across the galaxy. On the human fleet, soldiers watched and thought about the alien crewmates they'd served with on various stations. On the Luxarian ships, officers thought about the human traders they'd shared drinks with in spaceports. And everywhere, ordinary beings thought about the people they knew from other species, the friendships they'd formed, the connections that transcended politics. The broadcast ended. Hana and Vex sat together exhausted, waiting to see what would happen. Hours passed. Then reports started coming in. Protests in both capitals, not demanding war but demanding peace. Luxarian citizens marching through their orderly cities with signs reading, "Connection over control." Human colonists gathering peacefully to discuss cooperation instead of conflict. The military officers on both sides began nego governments that had been preparing for war, suddenly found their people demanding something different, something better. It wasn't instant. It wasn't perfect. Political negotiations took months. Compromises were painful. Old prejudices didn't disappear overnight, but the blockade was lifted. The fleets powered down their weapons, and slowly, carefully, two very different civilizations began the hard work of actually understanding each other. Hana stayed on Harmony 7, helping establish the new diplomatic programs. She became ambassador to the Luxarian Imperium eventually, the youngest in human history. Vex reformed her empire slowly, introducing concepts of local autonomy and individual choice. It was difficult and there was resistance, but she persisted. She'd learned from a human girl that some changes were worth fighting for. They remained friends. Real friends. Vex visited the café whenever she could, which wasn't often enough for either of them. But each visit was precious. They would sit in that corner booth drinking thermal brew and hot chocolate, talking about everything and nothing. Years later, at a formal state dinner celebrating 10 years of peace, Hana and Vex snuck away to a quiet balcony overlooking the stars. Do you ever regret it? Vex asked, echoing a question from years ago. Everything that happened because of us? Hana smiled. You once asked if I could forgive someone for lying about who they were. My answer hasn't changed. The person sitting in that cafe lonely and hoping for connection, that was the real you. Everything else is just your job. And you, Vex replied softly, were never just a girl working in a cafe. You were always going to change the galaxy. I'm grateful I was there when it began. They raised their cups, thermal brew for Vex, hot chocolate for Hana, and touched them together. Not as Empress and Ambassador, but as two friends who'd proved that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could reshape the entire galaxy, because that was the human way. Connection over conflict, friendship over fear, love over war. And it turned out that sometimes the human way